truth and preservation of our soul shine. I can feel it, yours and mine. Close your eyes and witness it inside. In your bones, you will know. Trust and let go, and let it flow.
Today, I have with me an amazing, already I know, soul sister, Dr. Tara Perry, who, among other things, is a hypnotist and practices Chinese traditional medicine. And I'm already feeling massive connections and vibes and amazingness because, like, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. We already started talking about a whole bunch of other things, but like, okay, so I started studying body talk 3 years ago, and that employs acupuncture, Chinese traditional medicine, chiropractic kinesiology, a little Aboriginal Australian energy, and consciousness. And I've always been fascinated by Chinese medicine because of the way it explores the body in ways that Western medicine just completely ignores. And one example that I have personally is my kidney meridian. I know it's not 100% because some of my teeth hurt, and I've looked at the meridians and I'm like, that's not just my teeth hurt. Like, I know it's nothing's wrong with my teeth. It's the meridian. And that's something that Western medicine doesn't even have awareness of. And so what drew you into this practice of learning this really complex, amazing practice of medicine?
Wow, that takes me back a few decades. So I spent when I graduated from UCLA, I got into the entertainment business of all things, and I read scripts for a living, and that was an amazing experience. Really glad I have that in my repertoire of skills. And then I spent the last 2 years at one of the leading, actually it was the leading talent agency in Hollywood. So I was immersed in all of that, and it was the most, everybody wanted to be at this company, and it still is immensely powerful today. And we had lawyers and MBAs from Harvard and Stanford working in the mailroom for minimum wage. That's the level of competition to get into this place. And I had been there for 2 years, and two of the top guys were wanting me to work for them, and I just felt like I was suffocating. It was a lot of money, a lot of power. But I looked around and I didn't see a lot of happiness. There was an exception here or an exception there, but generally it wasn't a lot of happiness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was a lot of competition, a lot of backstabbing, and it was a very external life. You were only as good as how quickly people would return your phone calls and how much money you made and what kind of deals you put together.
Yeah.
So I called my homeopath one day and I asked him. I said, "Hey, what would I do if I want to do what you do?" Because I was really impressed with how he healed people. And he said, "Well, there's a few licenses you can get to practice medicine, and one of them is acupuncture, one of them is chiropractic, one of them is doctor of osteopathy, and one of them is being an MD." And he says, in my opinion, the way to understand the human body the best is to study acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. So that's what I went and did. 2 weeks
That's
later,
awesome.
I was in night classes. 2 weeks later, then I gave notice a quarter later, and they thought I was nuts because here I
Oh,
was
yeah.
leaving the Mecca, and to go do something which at the time nobody had any clue about, because now there's an acupuncturist on every street corner in Los Angeles. But at the time, it was like you're gonna go be a witch doctor, you're gonna go be a massage therapist. It's like, what are you gonna go do? So I went then to China and studied at one of the traditional Chinese medical hospitals there for a year, and that was 2 years after Tiananmen Square. So it was really, really, really a different world.
Yeah.
I was in a city with 9 million Chinese and only about 100 foreigners, which was an amazing experience. And they loved Americans because, we had helped them out during World War II. You're a historian, you know that, right? The Flying Tigers.
Mhm.
So, and they were dying to learn English. So they would surround you 10 layers deep just to have a conversation with you because there weren't enough native speakers for the PhDs in English to learn how to speak. So it really was an incredible experience. I was on the news several times. They went ballistic if I sang anything. I could have dropped everything for a year and pretended to be Madonna. I swear I would have had thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of followers. It was the road not taken, right? So anyway, that's the sort of the beginning of my 23-year acupuncture journey. I had offices in Santa Monica and then Beverly Hills and Belmont Shore. I taught at UCLA. And before COVID, I had a patient who was struggling a lot with trauma issues, and she was raving about this process that she was doing. And when I found out it was based in hypnosis, I said, I'd like to meet your person. And we ended up swapping a session. And I thought, because I had already knew the two top hypnotists in Los Angeles, and while they were very extremely knowledgeable people, they, were they had benefited many people. This was kind of a next level
Mhm.
hypnosis experience, and
Mhm.
it rocked my world. I then trained in that, and since I've also done hundreds of hours with Dr. Joe Dispenza. I just got back from my 7th event with him,
Wow.
and I love what he's doing in terms of raising heart and brain coherence,
Mhm.
and measuring what's happening in the physical body as this is going on. So there's proteins that get produced that are make one relatively impervious to illness,
Mhm.
and they're identifying what those are, and they're quantifying how much people have to meditate in order to get what kind of physical outcomes, and they're measuring microbiome and blood, and they're now looking at tears.
Wow.
So they're looking at all these different metrics, and showing how these processes improve the human experience.
Mhm.
And then anyway, so I discovered I'm quite adept at helping somebody find what's stuck in their subconscious mind and then just going in and rewiring it. So
I love
this to
that.
me, this part between our ears is command central, and most of that is subconscious.
Right.
Scientists now know that 90 to 95% of our mind is subconscious. So by making changes there, I'm seeing crazy dramatic, crazy quick. I mean, just in the last month, let's see, I had a woman, a nurse, who suffered chronic debilitating daily migraines, and it was extreme suffering for her. 80% of them are gone in the first 5 weeks.
Wow.
Again, we just go back to, where is this? What is it?
Right.
What's the feeling that is dragging this person down? It's typically shame, blame, I'm not enough, I'm overwhelmed, anxiety, stress. There's something there, and some story that we've told ourselves about ourselves, the world, and other people. It doesn't really matter what happens to us. It's the story we create about it that ends up doing ourselves in.
Right.
It's that loop that just keeps playing and playing and playing and playing. And unless something disconnects that and rewires something else, and you have that pathway from where you are to where you want to go, sometimes I get people all the time that have been in therapy for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, daily panic attacks, PTSD, anxiety, all kinds of stuff. And it's just so thrilling. I feel like I get to let people out of prison for a living.
I love that. I love that. I feel that when I work primarily with animals.
Mm.
And so when I do a session with an animal and the animal comes into my consciousness, and because I've already memorized, there's a chart in the body talk system. So I've memorized that like 3 years ago. It was like, okay, you've learned it. Here you go. Start practicing. I'm like, okay. So they will guide me through the chart and tell me what they want. And I just literally write it down, and I can't read my handwriting. And then I create a formula for them. And then within like 24, 48 hours, they're like better than they were.
I love this because one of the people I interviewed on my podcast a few months ago was a woman who is an animal communicator, and I desperately needed her because my cat was having UTI and GI issues, and you take her to a normal vet and they're running tests, they don't find anything. It's traumatic to take her and do all this stuff, not to mention expensive and a waste of time.
Right,
And
right,
I get that there are reasons why you would need those things. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people, they're frustrated because it doesn't solve the problem. And
right.
the animal communicator was really helpful, but I'm grateful to know that there's somebody else out there that does wonderful work with pets.
I love.
And I'm guessing you do it virtually as well, yes?
Yep. Pictures. I get like I have a client who sent me, she's got 3 dogs. She's like, here's this one, here's the story, second and third. I don't need anything else. I can
Beautiful.
literally tune into their energy because I mean, that's when I first started doing body talk. I did something called Body Talk Access. And the dog I practiced was in Ireland, not on Zoom, but on a phone because the guy couldn't call into Zoom. She holds up the phone and I look at the dog on phone through Zoom, and the dog goes from bounce, 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 bounce to falling asleep before I'm done tapping in access. I'm like,
Love it.
okay, this.
Actually, I also interviewed the top animal chiropractor on the planet, so he would love to know about you too, I'm sure, because he said, "Look, there's somebody I worked with, gave me instructions from their pet psychic, and it ended up being accurate." So,
Right. It's just fascinating because I have no idea. I mean, I know the chart and I know I'm an open conduit, but what comes through is unique for each animal, and it goes through ancestral stuff, it goes through trauma. There's a thing called body chemistry where I swirl my finger around my mouth and put that in my belly button, my thymus, and my left ear,
oh my
and it
God.
deactivates bacteria, fungus, allergies, and intolerances. There's one that deactivates vaccines. If and it's just like based on their consciousness and what they need, and I'm just literally writing it down and tapping it in.
That's
And
amazing. What percentage of your clients are animal and what are human?
I would say 70% animal, 30% human.
Interesting.
The animals are easier because they take, well, we're human.
No,
We're
that's what the
21st.
animal communicator said. She used to have the ability to read both humans and animals, and she says I got in trouble when I read humans because humans would say one thing and do another, and so she turned that off.
No, I get it. I get it because like the humans, we have so many programs, and you know this firsthand, because you work with this so much. And the animals typically take on the energy of the humans, or it's
Yes,
an
and we
ancestral pattern, because like what's happening in consciousness right now is the animals are tired of the codependency. And so they're asking to step into their sovereignty more, but the humans aren't ready for it yet.
fascinating.
So it's like it's a
I
really,
think we have a ton to learn from them. They're
yeah.
very pure. They're very guileless.
Mhm,
They are who they are, and I think all the scriptures that's written about know thyself.
mhm,
Humans play a very interesting game of pretending to be one thing and being another.
mhm.
And then we have all that fear and angst and guilt that gets created from that process rather than just as Jamie Kern Lima says, there's such relief in just being who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I've the more I find out the beingness of myself, the more relaxed I become.
Living your Dharma.
And like, what brings me joy in this moment? Not 20 years ago, not in the future, in this moment. And, right now I'm just like, all the synapses are firing because I'm just so enjoying being with you.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
sweetheart. I feel the same.
And
I'm
I,
actually this podcasting stuff is so much fun. I feel like I'm just so blessed with the opportunity to connect on these fun magical levels.
yeah, I agree completely because it's just so inspiring for each other. And then because our energy is lifted, we're lifting the energy of anyone who hears us.
Absolutely.
And that's just joyful because it's a gift we keep sharing with others, and it's delightful.
Let's just spread it all around the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what, without tapping into any of the various frequencies of 2020, I'll just ask, how did you see your practice shift? And what was coming through from 2020 to 22 that was different from before that?
Great question. I was okay. So COVID obviously stopped everything. For me, it was the best thing that ever happened because it forced me to really, really go internal,
Mhm,
and cut out what wasn't serving me and get very, very clear about what does serve me and others. I just did a very interesting podcast on Dharma, and he runs the Kripalu yoga center, which is the busiest yoga center in America. Stephen Cope, and um, he talks about how when you're living your dharma, it's like the whoop and the wharf of the fabric that's connected, and how there's in the I believe it's the Vedic traditions where they talk about that being a gem, and that gem is an individual human soul. And the more genuine we are, the more we fulfill that beingness, the more we um, create the connection for that garment that is the whole human race.
mhm,
It's very, very beautiful. But so I do feel like I was able to connect more deeply to my purpose, and how I can serve people at the highest level,
mhm,
help them more quickly, more deeply, more permanently.
mhm.
And again, it was that force in the environment change that necessitated me doing that. Because I mean, when you're running a medical practice, I had, a medical practice, and there was so many laws and restrictions about what you could and couldn't do and how to do it. And so it forced me to go virtual, and that was perfect because then all of a sudden I could work with people all over the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that so much because it one of the beliefs that humans have, that I've seen a lot is the ability to connect only in the physical. And what the past 3 years have shown me is that if I have a heart resonance, which I do with you, it doesn't matter that I'm not physically connected with you because I am on an energetic level, and it breaks down the illusion of the physicality as the only way that we can connect.
One of the subject areas that I'm diving deeply into in my podcast is near-death experiences.
Oh, cool.
And I'm actually listening to Journey of the Souls right now. But we have so much to learn from that. So many people who I just interviewed Eben Alexander, who was arguably more brain dead than anybody ever has become. And he was a brain surgeon, and he came back and wrote about it because there was no way, from a Newtonian physics point of view, from a standard medicine point of view, that he could have had the rich, more real than real experience when his brain was mush and
Right.
offline.
Right.
And so he knew, his book is Proof of Heaven. And there's just, and these are not rare occurrences.
Right.
These people often would have these occurrences throughout history, and not talk about them because they didn't want people to think they were weird or strange or possessed or whatever.
Get
But
institutionalized
they're
or
yeah, they're really common experiences. I mentioned to you before we started recording, Mark Gober I interviewed, and he wrote An End to Upside Down Thinking, and in that he quantifies all the science behind all these paranormal activities, and they're not paranormal, they're actually normal.
right,
It's just
right,
that
right.
we've been living this Newtonian physics model, which
Mhm.
it's outdated. It doesn't answer all the data that's out there. So he looks at his story is that he was a summa cum laude graduate from Princeton. He was captain of the varsity tennis team, went to work on Wall Street, was successful by all American standards, and wasn't happy because he was a materialist, and so he got interested in podcasts, and started realizing, wait a minute, there's incredible science behind these phenomena that can't be explained by Newtonian physics. And when he started quantifying all of it, it was reaching p-values that were ridiculously high, and 1 in a billion that this could be anything other than what it purports to be. He looked at Rupert Sheldrake's work with animals, as you're probably familiar with. He's the one that studied pets who seemed to know that their owners were coming back before anybody could possibly know that, but the pet knew it. And he documented it. I mean, he filmed these animals, and yes, sure enough, these dogs would get up and sit by the window, even if the owner was coming back at an unpredicted time. Yeah, over and over and over again. So again, these were all rigorously done in a scientific model and shown to be, it's 1 in a million or 1 in a billion that this could be anything other than what it purports to be. And they looked at telepathy, they looked at precognition, they looked at um, uh, um, telekinesis, which is the ability of the mind to move the material. They looked at random number generators. They looked at all kinds of things. And the studies that have been done over and over and over again. They've been repeated. They've been proven. And yet the scientific journals shy away from it, because anybody who sticks their neck out and says, well, maybe this stuff is real, they get, ostracized, or their careers get ruined, or it's risky.
Right.
So they tend to take the standard lanes. But if you read Mark Gober's book, I mean, it's jaw drop. It's total brain candy if you're interested in this kind
I
of
love
thing.
it. Love
I
it.
read it cover to cover twice,
Wow.
and took notes. And he takes crazy, his bibliographies and his citations are through the roof, because he's used to doing things, at the Wall Street level
That's beautiful.
for investment bankers and things like
Mhm.
that.
I love that. I have two examples that came up in my awareness. One was when my dad died, my mom had the ashes in a closet, and his cat every day for like 6 months. Was it 6 months? No. How when? Yeah, it was 6 months, because we didn't bury them for 6 months. Sit right in front of the closet and just mourned
Hmm.
every single day, because she knew he was there, and it freaked my mom out. She's like, how does she know? I'm like, well, because she was energetically, like, the energy. I mean, yes, his soul is scattered across the universe. I felt that when he died, but like the energy of his body is still there. It's in ashes, but it's still energy. So, it's not just when they can tell when the human's coming back and forth, but when they transition, they still feel the essence. And the
There's a
other,
great, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, go
There's a
ahead.
great cat study that actually made it into a major medical journal. It was this cat at a hospice, and they noticed that every time somebody was about to pass over,
Mhm.
this cat would show up. This was not a friendly cat, but it would always be there right
Wow.
with somebody as they were ready to pass. And somebody was
Wow.
coding, like code blue,
Mhm.
and there was all these people around there like looking around for the cat. They're going, oh, well, the cat must have got it wrong this time, but the person didn't die until later that day, and the cat
Wow.
showed up. So
Wow.
that actually did make it into the medical journal, because it had happened so many times, and it was statistically impossible
Right.
that it could be anything other than this cat having a sense as to when the person was
Oh
ready to
yeah.
pass.
Yeah, they're very intuitive. It's spooky how intuitive animals can be. And then the other instance is it's interesting. And one of my friends is a psychic, and my grandmother died, and we went to the funeral, and she sat next to me and held my hand as like support, and everybody in the family thought we were a couple, but that's another that's a whole other story. So she's holding my hand, and I all of a sudden get the awareness that I'm from that perspective. And there's like, why is she wearing glasses? She's dead. She doesn't need the glasses anymore. And oh, she really liked that nail polish. Why did they take it off? And I'm like, okay, this is not what any, and then, the minister's like preaching on about blah, 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 blah. And I'm hearing like, and oh my God, we're so grateful you're back. We've been waiting for you. Oh my gosh, we're going to have the biggest party for you. This is so amazing. What are these people doing down there? I mean, it was this fascinating awareness. And the funeral gets done, and I'm not aware of any part of the funeral, because I'm hearing all of this and I'm
Oh,
seeing it and
wow.
experiencing it. And we get done, and my friend Nancy is like, I need to go for a walk. I'm like, why, honey? She's like, I am so tired from channeling this for you. And I'm like, what? That's why you were holding my hand? She's like, yeah, I was told to do that for you so you could see that perspective. And I was like, wow, I don't know anything. I think I know
Hmm.
stuff. I don't know anything.
That's interesting you should say because I'm interviewing another person who specializes in shared death experiences.
Wow.
So apparently, this is another thing that goes on a lot. And again, people didn't talk about it for a long time, but when somebody's passing, sometimes multiple people experience that person going on to the next
Mhm.
level, and they have a shared life review. So
Oh.
there's a lot of shared experience in death, not just the person who has the NDE or the one that's passing over. So that's really fascinating that you have that experience.
Oh yeah, every family member that's transitioned, I felt their transition. Um, I don't know why, I'm lucky, I guess. But it's, it's that from a greater perspective, it's just me remembering more of the being that I truly am versus the being that I was programmed to be. And that, when we release those multiple the subconscious is amazing. We
Totally.
swallow, we get to move, we blink without even thinking about it, we breathe, so there's so many things that the subconscious is amazing for.
Trillions of activities each and every day.
Yep. And then there's the programs
Yeah.
that keep us small, that keep us from remembering who we are.
And those are really fun to break free from.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they really are. Like for me, um, I tell my friends to please show me when I can't see something, like, and it's a pattern that's not serving me, please tell me. You're not going to hurt my feelings because I can't see everything and I need your help.
And have they been responsive to that?
They have been. I've been blessed with very, very good friends that are like get the intent. Nobody's ever mean, but sometimes like somebody will press, here's a trigger, I'm gonna press it without knowing it. And I'll just be, thank you so much for pressing that button. I gotta feel this right now. Thank you so much. And it's beautiful because like I'm not shutting my feelings down. I'm acknowledging the gift that they just gave me and still being present to myself and what I need in the moment. But it kind of freaks some of them out sometimes.
Well, good that you gave them permission to share their feelings.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's important. We've been taught so long not to feel.
Uh, yeah. Like everybody in this change environment says, it doesn't matter what happens to us. It's just the interpretation that we made about ourselves, the world, and other people that hurts us. Byron Katie likes to say, everybody's in love with me. They just might not know it yet.
I love that. I love that. Because if we're all one, which we are, we're just looking at different facets of ourselves all the time.
That's why healing's an inside job.
And it's not always pretty, but it's so beautiful to feel the liberation of the heart and the soul when you're not running a program that you picked up ancestrally or karmically or many previous lifetimes, however it came in. It's something that served you for a time and it was a protection device, but you don't need it anymore.
That's the whole trick to what I do. It's like people are they're an iPhone 14 operating on iPhone 4 technology. And how's that working out for you?
Right.
So the iPhone 4 technology is not going to want to change until it can see, the subconscious can see, oh my gosh, that's painful, it's harmful, that's like holding on to a hot poker. Then it'll be willing to let it go, because otherwise it's just going to default to the familiar. That's just the way we are. And it's bizarre, I've had people that I've worked with who one fellow that I worked with, I did get kind of teary-eyed. He was 80 years old and hadn't loved himself ever.
Mm.
And when he finally like cracked that open and was able to see that little boy and give that little boy love, I mean, I'm just like, because I've hear a lot of bad stories, and people have been through rape and being beaten bloody and into unconsciousness and all kinds of terrible things. But that one really choked me up because I'm like, gosh, all these years without loving yourself. But when he was in the process of letting go that old pattern of feeling separate and alienated and the shame, the blame, whatever the story was for him, it was like there was that moment where he's like, wait a minute, that's my old friend, how can I say goodbye to it? And you really have to give it permission to go, acknowledge it, love it, thank it, and acknowledge that you're healthier without it, you're safer without it, it's time to let it go, just all those permission things, because again, that brain likes to default to what's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what trips people up, and that's why they can spend decades and decades and decades in standard therapy. That's why they can never solve the problem, because it's just, you're going to fire and wire that same stuff you've been firing and wiring yesterday, the day before. And when it's subconscious, and sometimes if it's like, well, I'm anxious, frustrated, guilty, whatever, and I don't even know why, then that gets even more confusing. So some of those memories get locked in, and as when you're a toddler or in the womb, even if your mother didn't want you for that time because there was financial stress, or she just wasn't ready, or whatever, that gets passed on to the child.
Mm-hmm.
It can get passed on to the child. I won't say it does every single time.
No, but it can. And like, if you have, like, I remember in my 20s, my mom gave me a list of all the potentialities of diseases I could get from her.
Nice.
It's like, oh, that doesn't feel good, Mom. And I don't really
Did you have a bonfire and light it on fire?
Like, oh, glaucoma and strokes and heart disease. And I'm like, really? Yeah, you know what? I'm thankful that you told me this. None of that feels like me. None of it. But thank you so much for sharing what you think I could possibly get. Because I'm only half of your genetics, and then the other half is Dad's, and Dad doesn't have any of that. And so, and that's before I even knew about Bruce Lipton.
I was going to say Bruce Lipton, of course. The three amigos, Greg Braden and Joe Dispenza.
Yep. And it's like, okay, Mom, I appreciate your consciousness and your awareness, but none of that resonates with me. That just feels like it's a program that you're trying to impose upon me. I didn't have that language then, but that's what it felt like. It's like, oh no, here, I'm giving this to you. No, thank you. I knew it was like a no, thank you. Get that away from me, because it didn't feel right. But, that's like, oh, well, this is the way it's always been. That has never worked for me.
I was once in the hospital with, I had Guillain-Barré syndrome. I was paralyzed from the neck down, and I had two doctors one doctor and one friend who told me exactly what I did want to hear. I manifested the only neurologist in all of Los Angeles who told me exactly what I wanted to hear. And I clung, that was all I focused on. And when the doctor at the hospital said, don't expect to get your body completely back, I made a giant delete button in my brain and pressed it with everything I had. And I'm like, that delete. And I was back to work in 3.5 weeks, and I took a picture of myself doing a scorpion, which is a complex yoga pose, as soon as I possibly could, and I sent it to the head of neurology there, just like
yeah, because like, just because their knowledge is here doesn't mean that your knowledge is here. It means your knowledge can be up here or down here. It depends on your willingness to surrender to the unknown.
And as we know from quantum physics, there can be multiple realities. I think 2/3 of physicists now understand that there are the potential for multiple realities. So I just interviewed Cynthia Sue Larson, who wrote Quantum Jumps, and that's pretty exciting when you, and I do think Joe Dispenza is very much along those lines. It's like he says, don't watch anything you don't want to experience.
Right.
Because if you're in the vibration of something if you're feeding the vibration of something you don't want to experience, that's not good.
Makes sense.
And if you're vibrating at the frequency you do want to be experiencing, then you're going to draw that to you.
And when you, like, I spoke with somebody recently, and she said, when you worry about someone, and I love this, when you worry about someone, you're actually placing that intention on that person. So like, let's say your daughter is driving on a snowy night, and you're like, oh my gosh, I hope she's okay. I don't want her to get in an accident. Well, you just put that into the field of possibilities.
Mm.
And I'm like, wow, you're right, because it's the intention.
Instead
And
of just seeing her arrive healthy and happy and in one piece.
right. It's just imagine that she's going to be healthy and safe, and it was a great drive, and the snowplow was right in front of her, and there was absolutely no problems. Like that's a possibility. I like that possibility much better than any other possibility. So I'm going to focus on that one, because if I have that intention, and it's the nuances of energy and how we're learning how to navigate that with our awareness, that's really shifting consciousness.
Yep, navigating with awareness seems to be the name of the game. I would say the biggest tool that I give people is identifying in the subconscious, which is something that they often it comes in a way they don't expect, because if it's in the subconscious, it's below the consciousness. And if they could have solved the problem with their conscious 5 to 10% of their brain, they would have done it already.
Right.
But then it becomes a choice to focus on that pathway to that higher vibration that's more truly in alignment with who their soul and spirit is.
I completely agree, but it's it's a process of unlearning all
That's
that.
true.
Yeah.
In my little digital presentation that I share with people who set up a call with me, I've got a slide of Glenda the Good Witch, and I said I feel like Glenda the Good Witch because I'm honestly just reminding you of what's deep within you already, and it's been trying to get out. In fact, all the symptoms that you're feeling are often because it's this energy is so desperately trying to be heard and seen, and it's showing up as migraine headaches or back pain or stress or PTSD, or it's just this energy that so desperately needs to be heard.
Mm-hmm. I know, and the body is the conduit of communication.
And
And
what's really cool about that is, though, this thing that you thought you were enemies with, that you're trying to suppress, you're trying to get rid of, you're trying to cut out, you're trying to take a drug for, if it turns out to be your best friend that's actually wanting to help you, how cool is that?
right, right. It's like, oh well, this was protecting me, and
Trying to.
right. I mean, the best it could. I mean, like if you have something from infancy, and it's an energy of protection, well, that's all your infant knew. So thank him for holding on and trying to protect you, because they didn't know any better. But
Yeah,
it's
sometimes I see people that have, been grinding their teeth into nothing, and it's just because of an old pattern, because that stressed out child, what else could that stressed out child do except sit there and grit its teeth?
right. And it's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't need to stay, because that
It's
was.
outdated. It's outdated. It needs permission to go.
And I love the fact that you're helping people find these programs that really, I mean, given the shifts going on in consciousness, we really need to like get rid of all the old programming.
Well, and the other thing I love about it is it not only affects that person, but it affects their families, it affects their kids, it affects their employees, because if they're operating at a different level, if they're not bringing their stress and their pain to a situation, then other people can be elevated as well.
Yeah, it really makes a difference. It really makes a difference. I will share that this afternoon I'm going to go see some friends from Shasta who are going to meet me in Portland at Jake's Seafood, which I love. It's one of my favorite seafood places. And on one level, we're having an amazing dinner. On another level, we're like pinpointing a focus of high vibrational light into the center of downtown Portland, and then we're leaving. And the ripple effects of that energy, who knows what's going to happen with it, but I can feel it. I intuitively sense it. I was like, okay, it's not an ego. I'm not going, oh, I'm the, you know what I mean? But like, because of frequencies and how we show up in the world, we can affect on a ripple level consciousness.
Absolutely. And heart math has proved it.
Love heart math.
Especially, especially get a large number of people. That's what's really exciting, is it doesn't take a majority to shift the energy of the planet.
Nope, it doesn't.
Actually, we did the global walk for it was back in September, and we had
Mhm.
140,000 people all over the world, and it shifted the Schumann resonance.
Wow.
There's a measurable shift in the Schumann resonance just by having all these people all over the globe connected at the heart level, in that high vibration. Super cool.
How do you help people shift awareness into living through the heart?
Well, I think that that's our natural state, and it's removing the filters that got in the way. I over and over and over find that when somebody connects to the root origin, the cause of whatever the issue is, the stress, the anxiety, the pain, and then rewire it, that I just have so many people that experience bliss for the first time in their life, peace for the first time in their life. You know, some people say that they just feel like they feel insane amounts of love, like they're walking on clouds. And it's I think that's, that's, and anybody that dies, and goes into the light, they all report the same thing. It's like it's so beautiful there that they don't want to come back. Not in every single case. I mean, sometimes people, there's a loved one or a child or something they want to come back for. But Zach Bush has this wonderful 8-minute clip on YouTube, where he revives 3 people in the ER that weekend because he's an amazing doctor. And you think you're a big hero to bring somebody back, but when they look at you, and these 3 people said, also from completely different walks of life, said, "Why did you bring me back?"
Wow.
Because it was blissful, and they felt more unconditional love and acceptance. So the goal really is, well, how do we experience that here now rather than wait until we've exhausted, this physical form, and have to move on. So the joy that I experience is removing those filters so that somebody can start to live in that peaceful, joyful state. And typically, within 3 sessions in the 90 days, they get a huge chunk of the way there. I mean, we're works in progress, so we're layered beings, but there's a dramatic, measurable shift, whether it's reduction in headaches or migraines, or PTSD or anxiety, or just not feeling good enough about themselves. Some people, it's a work situation where they kind of cower and procrastinate and don't feel okay asking for money for what they do, and then they end up blissfully happy and in their soul connection, and know that it's okay to receive sustenance for their hard work and what they contribute to other people.
Mm,
And that's happened many times.
love that so much. I love the work that you do in the world.
Thank you.
Truly.
I feel so blessed, and I just am grateful that when the signs came up, I was able to go internal and listen to them and follow them, even though the world was telling me to go a different direction. I've had many opportunities where there was a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of prestige, and for some reason I just couldn't say yes.
Mhm.
So I kind of choose to be beating my own drum and following this path along the way, and I don't regret it, because it's led me to this work, which feels very, very true and authentic, and I can just see it consistently helping people at a high level.
I love that so much. Truly.
Well, you're doing the same thing, baby.
I know, but like to meet somebody else who's following their bliss and to really living in their heart and doing the I don't want to call it a mission, but the assignment of the soul that called you. I mean, I knew I was going to be a doctor when I was 10. I just didn't know what kind of doctor I was going to be.
Mm,
And so, allowing myself permission to drop the historian, which was a interesting experience. I was like, well, it wasn't really fun. The last year definitely wasn't fun, but like I learned a lot and I'm grateful for the experience. That's not who I am. It's a journey I took. And to be able to do what brings me joy now, which is to help the four-leggeds and the feathers and the fins to the best of my abilities, that's what brings me joy. So
awesome.
yeah, it's pretty magical when you get to that space where you like remove the layers and the layers to see who you I want to not who you are. I mean, we're divine beings, but what makes you light up.
And a
make
lot of it's just removing what doesn't serve you.
right.
The toxic thoughts, the toxic environments, the toxic relationships, and just, just keep evaluating what
Mhm,
feels good, what feels right. Like you said, right in this moment, what's awesome for me. And
mhm.
what's awesome for you will be awesome for the other person, because it doesn't feel good to hurt other people.
Right. Right. That is not our innate state of being. We love to help and we love to share. I
I
mean,
mean,
I love
if I go to bed at night and somebody that day has texted me, "Oh my God, my life is so much better," da 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 da, that's great. Then I did my job.
when I hear an animal is feeling better, I'm like, really? I mean, it's not that I doubt myself because I don't, but like the confirmation of like the animal actually feeling measurably better. I actually saw a cat a couple weeks ago. The cat was down and I just got like 3 or 4 different things coming through in a formula, tapped it in, and the animal like went from like depressed almost to like better than she was before she got depressed. While I'm watching her, and I'm like, that's so amazing. It's like I get this little kid in a candy shop level of joy to see, because it's just so amazing that like I can help somebody like that.
That's so often what I say at the end of a session. I just have this big Cheshire Cat grin on my face, and I said, "Wasn't that fun?" And the client is, a bit exhausted because they've just
Right,
shed a bunch of stuff that doesn't
right.
serve them anymore. So they're like, it takes them a while to process the fun part. But I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, that was so much fun!" And they're feeling lighter, they're feeling better. But it's like, wow, that was a journey. So I usually tell people, look, have a little bit of me time afterwards, because it's gonna, I don't do lots of sessions on people. It's typically 3 sessions in 90 days.
Ooh,
But and it's not hard. It's just, going deep to the issue,
right.
taking a good look at it and rewiring it.
I love that. Mm, I want to talk to you for so much longer.
We'll do it again.
We'll do it again. So I'm going to ask you one final question. How can people find you?
So if you go to consultterra.com or nashvillehealer.com, it'll take you to my website. You can click the Let's Talk button. There's some questions there to answer to just get clarity about what it is you want to shift. We can set up a time to talk for about 30 minutes on Zoom. I do have a little presentation that explains, how the subconscious mind works and what people are getting from the experience. And we can just see if you're a good fit. It's totally no pressure. If it's a great fit, great. People usually, when they hear the story, hear the voice, they're like, yeah, I want to do it. So, and then, yeah. And if your listeners want to go on there and just shoot me a message and say, I heard about you on the podcast, would you send me your unzip meditation? They can get that. Just say, Sophia sent me, I want the unzip meditation. And you can, it's just a short way to go into this relaxed state, unzip from all the illusory experiences of being a 3D being, and just experience being not that for a little bit,
Mm,
and
I love.
relax.
Thank you, my dear.
Oh, one other thing, I do have a podcast. It's called Next Level Healing.
Awesome.
There's my little logo in the background,
Awesome.
and I'm interviewing some crazy cool people. Like I
Awesome.
said, Eben Alexander. I'm doing a lot on near-death experiences right now, because these experiences are so rich. They have so much to teach us. I'm doing a lot on quantum physics right now. Mark Gober is over the moon amazing. I can't wait to share that interview with you, Sophia. And I'm available on every podcast platform.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much, my dear. I am so tickled that I get to know you.
Me too. And I can't wait to have another conversation in the future.
Same here, love.
Can you help me redefine truth and preservation of our soul shine? I can feel it, yours and mine. Close your eyes and witness it inside. In your bones, you will know. Trust and let go and let it flow.